Hey, Waffle Gang, I do hope you're well. My name is Mark, and today we're checking out some more Mad Butthole. And if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too? Let's crack on with today's first story from OKTooth2640, who says, am I the arsehole for laughing at my mother-in-law when she ate my snacks and got way too high? My wife and I just moved back to our hometown. We love living in a big city, but we agreed when we got married that when we started a family, we would move to a small town. It sort of sucks, but I'm only a 45-minute drive from a theatre and good restaurants. It's not like we're in the middle of the woods. We live in Canada. Weed is fully legal here. I like to make weed butter and cook with it. I make brownies or fudge, and my wife and I both partake. Well, her not so much right now because she is breastfeeding. Wife insisted that we give her mum a key for emergencies. I disagree, but I lost the vote. So we talked about it and I said I was fine with it, but it was only for emergencies. She wasn't to use it to come over and clean up or anything like that. Her mum agreed and we gave her a key. Well, she followed the rules for about 2 months. My wife is out of town in the city for the weekend visiting friends. Since it is a 2-hour drive to that side of the city, she is just staying there. I came home last night and found my mother-in-law high as a kite in my living room. She had decided that since my wife was out of town, I needed a home-cooked meal. One thing led to another and she found some fudge. She was so high, all she was doing was staring at the TV. Indigo will do that to you. I called my wife and laughed my ass off. She's given me shit for letting her mum get high and for laughing at her mum. Mother-in-law is currently resting in the guest bedroom. My wife's stepdad came to get her, but she is not moving. We had a few beers and watched the Jays get destroyed. She came into our home and ate my stuff without permission. I'm not really upset. She is super helpful and she has always been nice to me. I just think it's hilarious, but my wife says I'm an arsehole for laughing at her mum. And we do have a small update in just a second. And whilst you said that your mother-in-law is nice and you get along with her and stuff, which, I think is great, but you gave her the key which was just for emergencies only. A home-cooked meal doesn't really, although nice, doesn't really strike me as an emergency. Then she took some food, got high with it. It's not really your fault, is it, at all? And just going back to the key thing again, it was just for emergencies. That was your boundary. She broke it. She's overstepping. It's as simple as that. But Technical Lobster says, not the arsehole, she broke your rules. No going in the house except for emergencies. Having a cooked dinner is nice, but not an emergency. She helped herself to food without knowing what it was or for whom. Imagine you had it saved for someone, a party, or to take to work, and laugh about it is the best option. There's no reason to be mad or angry, and it is a funny thing. After you'll check to see if she's not hurt, wife will hopefully find it funny too, as will mother-in-law. Fluid Letterhead says, not the arsehole. The key you gave her was for emergencies only, right? You needing a home-cooked meal is not an emergency. If you go into someone else's home, you ask permission first. It's very simple. It sounds hilarious, by the way, but try containing your laughter until her mother feels normal again. Boring Possible says, not the arsehole. I guess it is more the situation that makes you laugh than your mother-in-law. Somebody came into your house, helped themselves, and thereby incapacitated themselves in a rather innocent way. Karma and a good laugh. That it is your mother-in-law is a bit beside the point. It adds to the laugh because now the intruder part is innocent, not as if it is a criminal. In which case you would have to involve the police and new locks and all that stuff that is absolutely nothing to laugh about. But even so, you are laughing at an innocent intruder, not really your mother-in-law. If a respect-worthy person does something funny, you can laugh. And respect. Sunroad Reader says, there are so many horror stories of in-laws not respecting people's homes. I recommend you talk to your wife about reclaiming that key, and if she disagrees, you're going to need to think seriously about what to do next, because there will be one. Right now this is pretty funny, but in the future, it might not be. And the small little update said, edit. Small update, just talk to mother-in-law. She absolutely knew what she was eating. She just hasn't had any in a while and I guess was expecting more of an experience like Cheech and Chong. Not the genetically modified hybrid that I buy. Now, what do you guys make of this one? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and let's move on to another Am I the Arsehole story. Because I got high, because I got high, because I got high. Do 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 do. And our next story comes from Logos H434, who says, Am I the arsehole for dropping my sister's kids at the child-free wedding that she was at? To make a long story short, I, female 25, am a medical student. My free time is very limited and I have lots and lots of commitments. My sister, female 33, has 3 kids all under 10, and she often expects me to babysit for her, which isn't the main problem. But she drops them off at random times with very short notice or no notice at all. The other day, she called saying she was on her way to drop the kids off at my place because she was attending her friend's child-free wedding and she couldn't take the kids with her. I had a huge argument with her on the phone because I had to study for my upcoming exam. But next thing I knew, the kids were at my doorstep and she was already back in the car and then drove off with her husband. I was so pissed I couldn't handle it. I decided to get dressed 30 minutes later and take the kids right where their mum and dad were. I drove them to the wedding, which was at her friend's house, and had them go in. The men there tried to stop the kids till my sister and husband came rushing. My sister was shocked. She started shouting after me, but I quickly got in the car and drove off. I went home and she started calling me. After she realized I wasn't going to pick up, she sent a few texts calling me an unhinged and a fucking bitch for putting her in this situation and embarrassing her in front of her friends. She mentioned that by bringing kids to the child-free wedding, I disrespected her friend, which affected their relationship and caused her and her husband to go home and miss out on the rest of the wedding. Her husband called her later and I picked up thinking he'd speak to me rationally like he always does, but he scolded me, saying that it wouldn't hurt if I kept the kids for a few hours, and then expressed how disappointed he was and how selfish and petty I was to do this to my sister and her kids. Now I'm thinking I should have sucked it up for a few hours. Am I the arsehole? And we're going to start off with Topical Tropical Pops, who says everyone sucks here. Your sister shouldn't have just dropped off her kids with no notice and expected that you'd take care of them. That's super rude and not considerate of your time. You went to someone's wedding and brought children who weren't prepared to be there and drove away before it could be properly handled. Who loses the most in this situation? The kids and the couple getting married. Both you and your sister were being arseholes to the people around you, and that isn't okay. Edit. I do think your sister should have planned in advance. You're not an arsehole for being upset at her for that. You're an arsehole for how you handled it. Ducky818 says, not the arsehole. Your sister dropped her kids off at your house without prior arrangements, assuming you had nothing else to do. She thinks she's entitled to everyone else's time and help. Hint, she's not. You didn't do this to your sister. She did it to herself. She knew she had a wedding. She should have arranged with you in advance or hired a babysitter. You did not disrespect her. On the contrary, she disrespected you and doesn't value you or your time. She and hubby decided to be parents. It's their responsibility to take care of their children and not dump it on someone else when it's inconvenient for them. Princess Snowflake says, tell your sister and her husband a lack of planning on your part does not constitute an emergency on my part. They presumably had months to figure out childcare arrangements and chose to dump them with you last minute, with no regard for your personal life, and then run away and get mad when you return their kids to them. Not the arsehole 100%, and anyone who says everyone sucks here or you're the arsehole needs to rethink and put themselves in OP's shoes. EJ1004 says, assuming you RSVP'd for this event, you knew you had a commitment. Without any regard for my schedule, you dropped your kids off at last minute. This is my last straw. I am no longer available to babysit for the foreseeable future. If the kids are dropped off here, I will be calling protective services about child abandonment. Not the arsehole. They disrespected all day your time. They knew they had an event to go to and failed to inform you until the day of. They are extremely inconsiderate and they have the nerve to try and scold you afterwards. They're trying to blame you for the direct result of their own actions. They clearly don't care about your feelings, so stop caring about theirs. Lindy Hop says, preparing to get downvoted to hell, but everyone sucks here. Sister and brother-in-law for obvious boundary stomping entitled behavior. You for acting very impulsively and wrecking someone else's wedding because you were so pissed I couldn't handle it, and got in the car and drove while super angry with 3 children in the back. Having waited just long enough that the ceremony was likely underway, rather than going straight away and catching the parents prior to the ceremony, or waiting another 30 for it to at least be past vows o'clock. Wedding couple and children were all collateral damage here. Maximum damage was executed. You are not an arsehole per se for getting the kids back to their parents when you hadn't agreed to sit and had other pressing priorities. You were the arsehole for not taking even a moment to think of the best course of action and acting off angry impulse. Your sister only thought of herself and her needs, and you did the same. She is obviously the big arsehole in this situation, but you are not free of arseholery. And there was a few more comments going along the same sort of lines about doing this at someone else's wedding. But what do you guys make of this situation? Do you think it's plainly a not the arsehole, or do you think it's along those everyone sucks here lines just because of not thinking about the wedding, etc.? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Let's move on to another story. And our next story comes from Theora334356. It says, am I the arsehole for not wanting my husband to walk his sister down the aisle? My husband Mike, 37, is the eldest in his family. He's pretty close with his sister Beth, 28, and they spend almost all week together. Beth had issues with her father growing up. She went no contact with him after he took her first car and damaged it. She only remained in contact with Mike since everybody else judged her for going no contact. She's getting married to a fiancé of 3 years. From what I understand, she and her dad are slowly getting reconciled, but she made it clear that she wants him to take no part in the wedding. She asked Mike if he could walk her down the aisle and he agreed. I have to say that I was taken aback and it felt a bit odd for me because her dad is alive, they're on speaking terms again. He's going to be there at the wedding, so the logical thing to do is have him walk her down the aisle. The role isn't for her older brother, but her father, not to mention how father-in-law will feel about it. I brought this up with Beth, and she had an attitude and implied that I was just saying this and objecting because of how I feel about the situation, not how our traditions should be practiced. We got into an argument and I went home. Mike thinks I'm being unreasonable and possibly causing him to miss something so sentimental, and that if anything, he feels honored to be asked to do this for her, and said I should stop worrying about what others might say. Now we're having this conflict, 3 of us, and cannot seem to reach a solution. Now I don't understand why the OP's getting so caught up in this. You know, Beth sees Mike as a great brother, someone that she's closest to, and she wants him to walk her down the aisle. What is wrong with that? Why are you getting involved? Beth clearly doesn't have the greatest of relationships with her father. You said it was because he took the first car and damaged it. There's probably a lot more to that as well. Obviously, I don't know the ins and outs, but I'm assuming it will be. And you should just be happy for Mike that Beth wants him to do this. He's probably incredibly proud right now. And I think simply you just need to butt out of it. But Straight Singer says you're the arsehole. There was no conflict except your unwanted opinion. Beth wants Mike to walk her down the aisle. Mike wants to walk Beth down the aisle. Mike's wife thinks he shouldn't, sticks her nose into his business, insists upon it, objects to it, creates a conflict because of her own opinions about years-long issues she hasn't been around for, and then posts. OP, during your entire typing and proofing of this post, did you not see that you've butted into someone else's affairs? Was there no glimmer of Beth should be able to choose whomever she wants, or Mike and Beth know the situation best? I'm more concerned that this isn't the first time you've done this. Argued a point rather than listen to the other side, and if I were you, I'd apologize and offer your non-judgmental support. If I were Mike, I'd be second-guessing my marriage. Dark Alley says you're the arsehole. There are 3 places you can always stay for free. 1, in your lane. 2, out of other people's business. 3, over there with your nonsense. This is way out of your lane. It's none of your business, and no one is remotely interested in your nonsense. Why do you honestly care who she wants to walk her down the aisle? Do you have a problem with this sister? Pretty Royal says you're the arsehole. The person who walks her down the aisle can be anyone that has played a big part in her life. You've acknowledged that your husband has been that for her. What does it matter who she chooses? It's not your wedding or your business. And one more from Crazy Math, who says you're the arsehole. Regardless, sister-in-law has a good relationship with father or not. She has the right to choose who will walk her down the aisle on her wedding day. It can be a father, mother, brother, friend, or any other person she trusts and wants. This is not your wedding, and you have no say who bride chooses to walk her down. And since it has nothing to do with you, stay out of the relationship between brother and sister. You're the arsehole. And our next story comes from a throwaway account who says, "Am I the arsehole? Asking my husband's friend if he was going to bring his wife's ashes when he moves in with us. My husband's friend, 31, lost his wife 4 months ago. He had cremated and used to keep her ashes in their home. He unfortunately had to lose their home to medical debts and asked me and my husband to let him move in with us and stay for a few weeks till he figures it out. He told us this during dinner. My husband said of course we'd welcome him to move in and stay in our house. I, for some reason, kept thinking about his wife's ashes. Now, I'm not a fan of cremation, but obviously I can't control how others choose to honor their deceased loved ones. But still, seeing ashes or bringing them around gives off weird vibes that I cannot control. I decided to speak up and asked his friend if he was going to bring his wife's ashes as well. His friend got quiet and my husband gave me a death stare. His friend left and then my husband blew up asking what the hell possessed me to ask such a question. I told him that I was just inquiring about the ashes since he knows how I feel about it. He said this came across as insensitive and unwelcoming towards not just his friend, but the deceased wife as well. We had an argument and he called me cruel and reckless to speak to his friend the way I did. He said I should never have brought it up and he told me to get over myself and not expect his friend to part with his wife just because I'm uncomfortable. We argued some more and he told me to apologize next time I see his friend for the disrespect I'd displayed. But in my opinion, he made a big deal out of a question. And like one of the last comments from the previous story said, is there not a point where OP's writing this out, they're reading it back to themselves, they not think, shit, that was a real horrible thing to do. I really need to apologize for what I said. I'll just delete this post and make it right. Rather than actually asking if you're going to be the arsehole in the situation. Of course you're going to be the arsehole. How insensitive can you be? Think about the whole situation here. This friend just lost his wife. He lost his house due to medical debts. He's going through grief at the same time. And instead of comforting and being loving towards this friend, meant to be a friend of yours, you ask him if he's going to bring his wife's ashes to your house. You need to sort that out quick and apologize to that man and show some compassion towards him. But WW054 says, so let's get this straight, because I want to make sure I understand. Your husband's friend just lost his wife and subsequently his house due to her medical bills. He manages to pull up enough courage to ask if he can stay with you guys for a bit till he gets back on his feet. And instead of showing any kind of empathy towards this man and considering his losses, your first reaction was to ask if he was bringing his deceased wife's ashes, because it gives you the heebie-jeebies. Your husband is right. Get over yourself. Wow. You're the arsehole. It's just me says you're the arsehole and holy shit. Just holy shit. That's the most insensitive thing I've read in a very long time. I have no idea what possessed you to ask such an incredulous thing. I actually had to tell my partner about this post and we're both speechless. Just apologize and in the future, if you ever think you should ask something like that again, don't. You always know when an Am I the Arsehole post is like just so bad because you have to shout out to someone in the other room, come and have a listen to this, just to see their face and their reaction as well. Holy shit. And Viva Me shared an interesting little story of their own. They said they wasn't trying to defend OP, but just something that happened in their life. So they said, honestly, this reminds me of a friend of mine who had necrophobia. I didn't even know it was a thing until I had met her. And she really did act as if anything death-related was a zombie. It was bad. She tried to suppress it, but she had a panic attack during Halloween because of a particularly convincing graveyard skeleton display. And there were several other notable incidents, but I'll never be able to forget this one. A classmate of ours had lost a grandparent and was mourning. My friend was sympathetic, but when said classmate brushed past her, she went to the bathroom and wiped down her arm, where they made contact. When asked about it, she said something like, "Classmate was recently near a dead person and I can't have that aura on me. It makes me uncomfortable and I won't be able to breathe." You won't understand. I never really understood. I've lost contact with her now, but I can only hope she's gradually gotten over her phobia. Not trying to defend OP, but when I read this post, I immediately thought of how this seems like something that friend would do, except she'd turn it up several more notches. Couldn't help but wonder if OP has a similar phobia. Straight Singer says you're the arsehole. You were selfish in wanting your question answered rather than think about how your husband's friend might feel. You didn't think about how it would feel before you asked the question. Right after you asked the question and even after sleeping on it. You were thoughtless and needlessly cruel. The thing that you say gives off weird vibes. Look in the mirror. And one more from Croc of Pot who says you're the arsehole. Have a heart for God's sake. If it was your husband who had passed, would you appreciate friends policing how you handled his remains? Would you appreciate them equating bad vibes with your life-altering grief? It wasn't just a question. I think you know that. You're your husband's friend, an apology. And now I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? Maybe you have a different opinion on the matter. Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Now, just a huge thank you for spending your time with me today, getting involved in the stories. Your love, support, and time always means the absolute world to me. So thank you so much for sharing it with us. And hopefully I will see you in the next one. Take care and much love.
Wake up, get up, stretch my legs, eat some breakfast, milk and eggs, brush my teeth up, wash my face, throw my clothes on, start my day. Wake up, I can smell the smoke from the bacon. Let's go, see the sun shining from the windows. Okay, I know that today